It's Halloween! Mate, it's November. What? Halloween's gone? Oh, for It was Halloween, which means as a game developer, it would be amiss of me to not make a horror game. Except I'm going to make a horror game using a random asset pack. And I'm going to do it all in 24 hours. I spin the random word generator, I get a word. I search for Fab Marketplace and find an asset pack related to that word. I then have a 24-hour time budget to create a horror game based around the asset pack. Having never made a horror game before, what monstrosity of a game will we make? Let's find out. And this video is sponsored by Brilliant, who have kindly sponsored this Halloween video. Still not Halloween? Yeah, alright, I get it. The first step is to get what word we're working with. I found a Halloween themed random word wheel spinner online. I didn't choose the words myself, it's just random default words that the website has. Pumpkin. Okay. Now searching for pumpkin on Fab brought up a surprising amount of cool and interesting assets and designs. When I looked at this one in particular, I quickly imagined the legs popping in and out, so it's switching from, oh, I'm an innocent pumpkin to,
I'm gonna rip your face off,
quite quickly. Connected words like sneaking, hiding, stalking, deception and farming were all racing around my head like a big melting pot, and what came out of that pot was an idea. My plan is to make a game where you play as a character called Terry Pumpkin, great name, and Terry Pumpkin is a pumpkin farmer. As a farmer, your job is to plant the pumpkins by day and harvest them by night, because that's how farming works, right? The problem is that the farm changes at this time of year. The pumpkins are no longer just pumpkins, at night they can change and turn into monsters. They will hide in plain sight, stalk you when you're not looking, and if they get too close, they'll reveal their true selves. At night, you can collect your fully grown pumpkins, put them into a shipping container, Stardew Valley style, and assuming you survive the night, you'll make money from the good pumpkins you sell. Put a bad one in, and you'll lose money. Reach a certain amount of money to repair your broken down car, and get off the farm before things get too much. Watch your back at all times. Make enough moolah, and Terry Pumpkin will live to see another day. Get careless, and you'll die. And that's the idea. I'm pretty excited about it, so I think we should go make it. Now, typically I approach projects with mechanics first. As much as I love visuals and artwork, gameplay is king. No mechanics, no game. But my main worry going into this is how long the artwork could take. I might need to scope down, so it's going to determine a lot for the project, which is why I'm starting here. The heart of the environment is going to be a farmhouse. Whilst you won't go inside, it will act like a hub, allowing you to switch between day and night. I cautiously hopped onto CG Trader and found a farmhouse. I'm a bit skeptical of free models, as they often do have issues, but this one seems to be... Really? Have you got enough materials? I spoke too soon. The farmhouse has an unnecessary, like really unnecessary amount of materials to it, so I opened up Blender much sooner than expected and started clearing it up. I also put some wooden fencing into the model instead. I found textures from various free resources online, made them as materials, with the brick and the roof specifically being world aligned since the UVs were inconsistently scaled between the three parts of a house, because of course they are. And eventually we have a farmhouse. The other model for the environment which I'm going to get from CG Trader is the fence. Even though it will probably only save me like 10 minutes, it's still precious time. The fencing is used as a spline so I can mark out the perimeter of the farmland, or in our case, the playable space. I had a short list of other assets to work through, and most of them I actually made myself. I knew they'd be pretty straightforward to make, or I had specific intentions with them, like a simple animation or a specific texture. I'd also rather not wrestle with dodgy topology and instead just make them myself. This consisted of the grass, which is topology based, relying on nanite and simple color blending in a material. For 15 minutes of work, it's pretty effective. A shredder, so we have something to destroy those sneaky creepy pumpkins. A shipping container, so we have something to put the hopefully good pumpkins we'd like to sell. And finally, a seed packet for all your planting needs. You should probably read the packet to caution. With one of the core parts of this game being that the pumpkins can hide as quote unquote normal pumpkins, it was fitting and time saving to extract the pumpkin model from the asset pack. It's not a perfectly normal pumpkin, but the main thing is that it will be consistent, and so you won't be able to tell if the pumpkin is good or bad just by looking at it. I set up 2 light and sub levels within my master level of the farmhouse, one for day and one for night. I'm not going to spend too long on it right now, as I know what I'm like, and I'll end up tweaking it plenty more going forward. With the night lighting sufficiently dark, we need to be able to see, or at least see a little bit. So I went and found a free torch model, removed all the unnecessary high poly bits, and then imported and set it up as an actor with a spotlight. When added to the player character, it's starting to feel like a horror game already. There's nothing in the game but the uncertainty which naturally comes from darkness, so we're off to a good start. And speaking of good starts, we're at the 5.5 hour mark right now. So I've managed to get all of that done in the time frame I hoped, which is a huge relief. Like I said, I thought this could end up taking much longer. The speed has come at the cost of me feeling like the visuals are just okay. I can't help but want to do more with it. I feel it leaves a lot to be desired, but sometimes the key to these challenges, and sometimes just with game development on the whole, it's being able to say good enough and move on. The farmhouse is not just a visual hub, but also mechanically. Interacting with the door will switch you from day to night, and vice versa. A lot of the game's flow will come through the switching, which is why I'm starting here. There will be a sequence of events which run when it's turning night, and a sequence of events which run when it is turning day. For example, changing which lighting level is visible. Or the fact that during the day we need the seed packet for planting, but at night we need the torch to see in the dark. I'm sure as we progress through the game together, we'll keep adding more events to each. I'm going to have E key be what you press to interact with the door, and this interaction will be done via a line trace and a blueprint interface event. In fact, my plan is to have almost all of the player actions run through the E key, line trace, and blueprint interface sequence, so it'll become a generic interaction system. A blueprint interface, which I'll call a BPI from now on because I can't be arsed saying blueprint interface every time, is a group of undefined events which can be added to any actor. And within that actor, the event can be set up to do whatever you want to do. The special thing about these events is that they can be called generically. I can shout out to a number of different actors to run the event, and only those which have it will actually do anything. I don't need to know the specific actor I'm trying to call to. Let's break this down. The player comes along and does a line trace. When the line trace hits something, it's going to attempt to run an event, which is also called a message. It's basically saying, excuse me, do you know what a player interaction event is? And if a hit actor does not have the interface, it'll say, I've no idea what you're talking about, mate. Oh, no worries, I'll do nothing and just move on. How about you, sir? Do you know what a player interaction event is? Why, yes, I do. I have that interface and I have some logic set up for the event. Great, go ahead and do that stuff please. Now I didn't need to have a specific reference or cast to anything. I could just shout out to a group of actors I've dynamically hit through a trace and see if anyone has the event. Very cool, very effective. And that is going to drive all the interaction based mechanics of this game. I press E on the shredder and again, it'll call out to see if it's got the event. And it will destroy the pumpkin in my hand. Oh, I don't have a pumpkin in my hand. Do we even have pumpkins? We don't have pumpkins in a pumpkin farming game. What am I playing at? Using the same line trace, I'm going to check to see if I hit the ground via a physical material assigned to it. And if I do, I'll spawn a pumpkin blueprint. The pumpkin blueprint has a couple of basic events such as setting the age via an enumeration and then setting the mesh to be a young or mature variation depending on its age. You can see it tying together, right? The day-night switching, driving events, and the interactions are all being driven through a single line trace and a blueprint interface. I race through being able to pick up and put down pumpkins, again using the same player interaction event. Picking up a pumpkin is a case of attaching it to a component within the player, and putting it down is a case of detaching and setting its location to the ground. Remember this detaching and attaching method. Ooh, is that foreshadowing? Are you still here? I also made it so you can put pumpkins into the shipping container, and then through the night event it will calculate how much of each type you have, and then pay what you're owed. A big part of scoping a project isn't just how much content you have, but how you handle that content. And in this case, I feel like so far I've managed to plan it in a way where I can cover a lot of work through some initial groundwork. And that's why I've got through pretty much all of the main mechanics at a basic level in only a couple of hours, which meant it was time to move on to the star of the show, the Bad Pumpkin. The core design and premise behind the Bad Pumpkins is that they stalk you, slowly, to the point where you won't necessarily even know they are following you if you're not paying attention. Something consistently following you might not sound terrifying, but if you've ever seen the film It Follows, then I think you'll agree, it's actually quite frightening. The Bad Pumpkin has a normal pumpkin actor within it, so it is able to have all the functionality of being able to get picked up, shredded, shipped, etc. And the hide/reveal events, which are also run through a BPI, will simply set up either the good or the bad pumpkin to be visible. The event is triggered based on the player's look direction, and luckily, there's a node for this which requires a vector and a rotation. But if you imagine the player essentially having a field of view cone, then you're thinking along the right lines. If the pumpkin falls within a certain range, then hide. If it does not, then reveal yourself. Next is the stalking, and this is really simple. It's a move to event with the player character as the target. That's it. It's really that simple. Oh, it crashed. The engine takes a few minutes to reboot as well, so that's annoying. I actually found myself with a few minutes pretty consistently throughout the day, and I'm the kind of person who just likes to be doing something, and thankfully I can now fill those pockets of time with something helpful. Today's sponsor. Brilliant is a platform built to help you become a better thinker and problem solver, with thousands of interactive and visual lessons across maths, science, programming, data analysis, and AI. And whilst you can sit and go through lessons on a PC, its hands-on approach to breaking down concepts and learning new skills is super accessible throughout the day thanks to the app on your phone. Open the app, do a lesson or two, build real knowledge, and then carry on with your day. So the next time you're waiting for a download to finish, Unreal to finally open, or maybe you're on the move waiting for a train to finally arrive, you can now level up your skills as a programmer and problem solver on the go. Brilliant has exclusively given viewers of this channel a 20% discount on the annual premium subscription, which gives you unlimited daily access to everything on Brilliant. All you have to do to get it is use the QR code on screen right now, follow the link in the description, or even the link in the pinned comment. Thank you to Brilliant once again, go check them out, and back to the pumpkins. With the pumpkin now able to get quite close to you thanks to the stalking we just set up, we need to consider adding the next bit of behavior tree. I want to have the pumpkin commit to a charge. Basically it'll start sprinting at you once it's close enough, and then leap towards your face to try and attack you. The foundation of this is the same as stalking. It's moving towards the player character. But I need to have it move much quicker, so I set up a task for switching movement speed, which I did via an enumeration event. And I need this behavior to only happen if close enough to the player. I create a decorator which checks how far away the pumpkin is from the player. A decorator is a condition check that you can add to branches of your behavior tree. So if we set up a decorator check if your player is within 500 units of the pumpkin, that will give us a true or false, or in other words, yes or no. This condition check will tell the brain whether it can or cannot run that particular branch. For the attack, I'm relying on a blueprint node called Suggest Projectile Velocity Custom Arc. I'm sure they could have thought of a shorter name for that. It basically takes two vectors and makes an arc shape between them, so when you pass this through a launch character node, it will launch them roughly along that arc, and straight away, it works pretty well. I'll probably tweak these values as we move forward, but it's working. If a pumpkin does leap at you and you don't die, then I want it to run off, ashamed of its failure. So after every attack, I'll set up a task which has it locate an actor, which I've placed really far away, and it'll sprint over to it. Once it's revealed itself in such an obvious way, it's broken a lot of that tension, and I feel like it's probably best to just remove it rather than have it try and re-hide itself. But maybe you disagree, and maybe you have loads of ideas running around your head as we go through this challenge, and if you do, I want to hear all about them. Seriously, it was a lot of fun reading through everyone's ideas and suggestions in my last video, and I'd love to hear yours for this one. Let me know in the comments down below, and if there's enough ideas, then maybe I'll follow this game up again in the future. If the pumpkin does manage to leap at your face and connects with you, then I want something frightening, terrifying, and even fear-inducing to happen. A print string. We need a way of combating this attack from the pumpkin, but I don't want it to make the player feel safe. For example, I don't want to give the player a gun. It puts too much safety and control in your hands, so I opted for a simple but effective crouch. You press the C button and it will reduce the player's capsule component by a little over half via a timeline, so it's nice and smooth. So the kill volume, being used to check if a pumpkin successfully got you, can narrowly avoid the scary leap, and Terry Pumpkin can continue farming for his life.
Well, that's just great!
With the lose state in place, we need to round out the gameplay loop with a win state. The plan is to have Terry Pumpkin repair his broken down car, which I found a free to use model for, and if he has enough money, then he escapes successfully and lives to tell the tale. We have the good pumpkins and we have the bad pumpkins, but we don't have good turning bad. So I set that up next via the day-night switcher. It's quite simple overall. I get all the normal pumpkin actors and then a random range of half of the sample will be destroyed, and in their place, a bad pumpkin character will be spawned. But they will be hidden by default, so you won't know the difference. I think I'm done with mechanics at this point, and I'm hoping to start playing around with the game a little bit, but I've noticed an issue when picking up the bad pumpkins. You may remember me earlier saying to remember about the attach and detach method being used for picking up and dropping the pumpkins. This was the root of the issue. The character is essentially made up of two actors, itself, the character, and then nested within it is the normal pumpkin actor. When I attach the pumpkin actor to the player to carry it around, it becomes independent of the bad pumpkin character, which means as you're walking around, there is an invisible pumpkin somewhere. And when you put the pumpkin back down, the two of them still remain independent. I'm making note of this specific issue because it ate up quite a bit of time. I was trying to find ways to reattach the pumpkin, move its location when you pick it up. Oh, the house looks kind of cool over there. No, focus. I was setting up dispatches and calls, basically trial and error to no avail, until I eventually said this. This feels too much, like it's overcomplicated. I just want to put a character down. I should just put a new character down. Why am I not doing that? The character isn't instance specific. There's nothing stopping me from destroying the pumpkin I'm carrying and then spawning a fresh character when I want to put a bad pumpkin down. I've said it a couple of times before. Occam's razor. The simplest solution is often the best one. With this annoying issue out of the way, I started delving into some communication improvements. I do believe a big part of game design is actually just finding effective but creative ways of communicating from developer to player. I added a screen space widget of a small sphere which will fade in and out based on distance. I think this helps make it a little more clear on what is and isn't interactable. I did have to catch myself doing this though, as I was starting to creep into polish territory, and I still have important content to make, so I'm going to stop what I'm doing and refocus. Moving on to the menus next. I'm going to start with the main menu, and I quickly landed on a name for the game. Terry Pumpkin and the Bad Pumpkins, which sounds like a great name for an indie rock Halloween band. I duplicated the farmhouse level to act as a live background with a simple camera sequence panning across. The menu came out pretty polished overall. There's some nice fade-in animations, the buttons feel clean, and the panning environment makes for an interesting backdrop. The only other menus I can really go ahead and do right now are the options and pause menu. Options are focused on graphics for now, but as long as I remember, I'd like to add some audio controls as well. Remind me. The pause menu is very similar to the main menu with a couple of the buttons reworked. For example, the resume button will unpause the game. And that more or less marks the end of the content for the game. Artwork is in place, mechanics are in place, and the AI for the pumpkin is working. There's a win state, lose state, and the user experience can take you from the main menu into the game and back out again. And what's crazy is that we're only just shy of 16 hours into the challenge, meaning we have just over 8 hours left. The only big remaining thing I need to do is audio, but I've estimated that to take around 3 hours, so I have at least a few hours for something else. Since I've got the very unusual luxury of having time on my side in one of these challenges, I'm going to play my game. I'm going to play it, see how it feels, and then we'll see what happens. But I know from previous experiences how important it is to play the game in its full picture and just feel it. What's it like to play? Are you having fun? Is it delivering the experience you hoped for? Something doesn't feel right. I've been playing the game for about 15 to 20 minutes now, and I've been taking a lot of notes throughout. There's something there, the core of the idea is present. Things are working generally as intended, but just because something works doesn't mean it feels right. The overall experience, if I'm being honest, it isn't quite right. It's quite tough to be honest with your own work, especially if you've put any amount of time into it. My first thought is, what am I supposed to do at this point? I'm quite deep into the challenge. Fortunately, in my case, I've been doing game development for a while now, and this isn't my first rodeo. So whilst they may not be perfect solutions, I quite quickly had some directions to go down, and because of the way the game has been designed mechanically, I've got a bit of time to fix it and also implement new things with relative ease. So let's take a closer look. There's a bunch of minor notes, but there's two main factors which I believe are issues. The gameplay is static as a result of too much freedom, and there's too much predictability, which removes tension. Let's start with the staticness. Because the player has the freedom to plant pumpkins wherever they like, they will generally take the easiest route. And the one which makes the most sense and is most convenient is to place the pumpkins relatively close together and near the front of the house. Why would you plant the pumpkins anywhere else? And so what this does is it creates a limited play space in which the player never goes round either side or the back. Because of this limited space, the player is almost always in a safe zone. Their cone of vision will mostly capture their play space, and as long as they don't turn their back too much, it's difficult to be caught out. The player is not vulnerable or exposed, and after a while the player will learn that and the game's tension reduces very quickly. So we need to get the player moving, and I believe the way to do that is to take the planting freedom away. I'm going to add planting patches to the front, side and back of the house. These patches will be exclusive for growing pumpkins on, and they should have limited space, meaning you will naturally outgrow one and require another if you want to make more money. This already gets the player moving much more, and because they are moving more, they are exposing themselves more. There's less opportunity to play with your back against a wall. This still has the player moving on a bit of a track though, and I'd like to sprinkle in a bit more chaos to the way the player will move around the play space. So I'm going to add wild pumpkins. These are pumpkins which can naturally grow anywhere on the farm overnight. They'll be visually a bit different, so you know a wild one when you see one. These will be both good and bad, just like the normal pumpkins. What's the incentive to go looking for these? They are worth more money. So now the player is moving around the full play space and moving away from planting patches for higher risk, higher reward gameplay. This also introduces more unpredictability since pumpkins will not be naturally restricted to certain spaces, which takes us nicely onto the second design flaw. A big part of this game is the questioning of whether a pumpkin is good or bad. If I turn my back now, will I die? Am I being followed? Did that pumpkin just move, or has it always been like that? The freedom of planting the pumpkins anywhere meant you could line them up, turn your back for a few seconds, and see which ones moved. Right now, the stalking will happen every time there's an opportunity to. If a pumpkin is outside your cone of vision, it's stalked, no questions asked. So I'm going to add some randomization to this so that the stalking won't happen the first time every time. It might take a few seconds before a pumpkin decides it's okay to reveal itself. So now, looking away and not seeing it move doesn't mean it's safe. Just like the player's movement, I want to step it up for the pumpkins as well. I love the idea of looking at the pumpkin, looking away, and then looking back, and it's not there. It's a trope in horror films and it's done a lot, but there's a reason. It's effective. Right now, even if a player is questioning a pumpkin, they still feel too much in control. So whilst uncertainty is creating some tension, it's not pushing it enough. The uncertainty needs to border on panic. So here's my plan. I'm going to use Unreal Engine's EQS, Environment Query System, for the AI to find points around the player to move to in an almost flanking-like motion. The Environment Query System is a bit like PCG in that you generate points and then filter them via conditions like distance to a subject, in this case that is the player. The flanking movement works right now, and I do think it's getting there, but I'm going to make some additions which for me steps up the unpredictability and threat of these pumpkins flanking by a lot. It gets so much better, which is why I'm going to save the best until last and show you that in a little bit. Having made so many changes, which I was hoping would improve the feel of the game, it was only right to take some more time to play the game and see if it worked. I think it mostly has. I'm moving around a lot more. The planting patches actually add some really nice sense of progression to the game, and the wild pumpkins bring in a much needed shake-up. These changes brought out the fun. It took the shape which was there and moulded it into its intended shape a lot more. I feel like there's still room for refinement of it though. I still want to ramp things up a bit more. Whilst I played the game again, I was making even more notes, such as improvements for pumpkins flanking, and I'm also going to introduce a timer to the night time. It's not too rushed, but an 80-second timer helps to put a bit of pressure on the player's decision making, so you don't have all night to wonder if a pumpkin is safe or not, and you have to act a bit more. It's a simple way of creating a little bit of urgency when you're probably already a little on edge within the darkness of night. If you've ever watched a horror movie on mute, even if just for a short period of time, you'll know why audio is the key ingredient to any horror experience. It does so much of the talking. Often hearing a noise is much more frightening than seeing the actual source of the noise. And I'm excited to get started with the audio because I think it's going to do so much for the refinement of the game. As always, I sourced all the music and sound effects from Uppbeat. For music, I got both daytime and nighttime tracks, with the daytime having a more funky Halloween vibe, and the nighttime getting a little more Conjuring inspired and string based. For sound effects, I was grabbing whatever I thought sounded interesting, like harsh violin strings or piano keys, but also specific sounds for player interactions and the pumpkin itself. For the pumpkin, I went for an insect/alien mix of sounds. I imagine it making quite scurry-like noises and being quite light on the feet. And fortunately, I found some very fitting audio for pretty much all of my needs. Some of it did need minor tweaks and editing in Audacity, but for the most part, I could crack on with implementation. Sounds produced by the Bad Pumpkins were generally 3D based, playing at the location of the monster. That way you can tell where it might be from audio alone. But a lot of the other sounds were played in 2D since its location wasn't important. I created a music controller blueprint to handle the playing of music, that way I could play both day and night tracks based on the enumeration of it, as well as stopping the tracks at any point if I needed to. Now I promised to step up in the flanking behaviour, which would improve the unpredictability and take the feeling of control away from the player, and it heavily ties into the audio. I'm going to do two main things with this. The first is that I'm going to hide the pumpkin when flanking. No matter how fast I made it previously, you were often able to tell where it was. The thing I mentioned earlier about looking at it, looking away, and looking back, it wasn't really happening. So I added a flank hide event which would simply hide it for about 1.5 seconds and then reveal it again. The second is the use of audio as it hides itself. Anyone who creates anything will probably relate to this. Whenever I'm thinking of ideas or in the process of making something, I have specific moments of the game play out in my head. It evokes the feelings that I want the player to have when they play the game. Those pictured moments don't always come out perfectly, but for me, this is it. It's horror. It ticks all of the boxes. Limited vision, initial uncertainty, but you're still relatively in control. You hear sharp horror audio, which sparks you to look, and then that uncertainty becomes a moment of panic and vulnerability. The tables have turned, even just for a moment. The design issue we went through earlier with predictability has been massively helped by these moments being possible to experience within the game. It's my favourite part of it. I spent quite a while adding audio to everything which needed it, ranging from the shredder, to the dropping of pumpkins, to the transition between day and night. The game feels much more alive thanks to it. And it's usually in these challenges, with only a couple of hours remaining, that I panic.
Oh my god! Okay, it's happening!
Something goes wrong, and I have to figure out how to do 6 hours of work in about 30 minutes. But not this time. No panicking. Just playtesting and iteration. I'm going to go through one more round of notes. I'm going to add the controls to the screen, I'm going to update the fonts, and the most notable final addition is an end of day report. I'm finding it a little bit unclear whether you had a successful night or not, despite your money going up. So I created a quick UI element which would show you the number of good, bad, and wild pumpkins that you've shipped. With this being the calmest end to a challenge on this channel, I found myself asking why. The obvious one is the scope and design. Getting the gameplay loop done at around the 15-hour mark was huge for the overall challenge, and it opened the door to unlock one of the most powerful tools: testing and iteration. If I had done the playtest that I did a few hours later, those design improvements we went through, that might not have even been possible. It also shows that if you play something you've made and it feels off in some way, it doesn't mean it's bad. It's amazing how the smallest of changes can have the biggest of impacts, just as we experienced in this. By learning from previous challenges and experiences we've done, and by testing the game not once, not even twice, but 3 times, I think for a 24-hour time budget, this is one of the more polished overall experiences. But I guess that's pretty subjective. What isn't subjective is the fact that you should absolutely go play this game for yourself for free over on itch.io. There will be a link in the description. If you've made it to this point in the video and you've enjoyed yourself, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, it would be massively appreciated. It goes such a long way in getting this video in front of like-minded people to hopefully also enjoy it. And I think we can all agree that Terry Pumpkin is a very brave man, because pumpkin farming has never been so scary. Why have I made a horror game? I'm so jumpy.